That depends on the mic you're using, okay?
Welcome, everybody, to episode 59 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am hosting tonight. My name is Carl Sinclair. Wade Finnegan is not with us tonight, but we do have the returning Trish McCallan and Kevin Michael and John Ward, and two special guests tonight. We have military suspense author Sharon Hamilton. She is the author of the SEAL Brotherhood series and the Golden Vampires of Tuscany and Guardian Angel series. She has been a top 100 ranked author in romantic suspense since the end of 2012. And we are also joined by her award-winning voice actor, J.D. Hart, who does the narration for her audiobooks. Well, welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
So I guess we're going to kind of go all over the place talking with Sharon about her books and JD about working in the audio book field with her. So I guess we'll go over to Sharon first, and maybe if you would just sort of give a little bit more background than I've given already on where you've started from, Sharon, and a little bit more about you, and then we'll move over to JD and ask some questions.
Sure. Well, I got interested in writing romance when our house burned down in 2008, and I was going nuts, watching TV, reading, doing things, and my husband had to stay up at the property because we had animals. And so I hadn't been separated from him for 35 years. I think most long-term married people should try it. Because I got a real creative streak in me, and in the first 30 days I'd written a 92,000 word novel, and it just took over. So I completely gave up my real estate career, which had been very successful, and started writing books full time, and the rest is history. A lot of trial and error and a lot of tears.
And JD, why don't you give us a bit of a background on your voice acting career and how you came to be working with Sharon?
It's been a long evolution, Carl. I started in radio 100 years ago, working for a small town station where I was the program director and on-air personality. I sold time, I sold spots. I did it all at this radio station, and I was also working on a recording career at the time. And so I remember I had actually gone in the studio and recorded a record and tried to play it on the radio station that I worked for. And the owner came in and said, "Wait a minute, that doesn't fit our format." And I said, "Really? Well, okay." So I moved on from that and into the music business in Nashville. I was a recording artist for 10 years, a recording artist for MCA for 3 years, for Universal Records for 2 years, and Capitol a short stint of 6 months. But then I quickly moved into television. I was asked to audition as a spokesperson for Chevrolet, and landed a 5-year contract as their on-camera spokesperson, and fell in love with that kind of work, and left the music business and started doing commercials on a full-time basis for Chevrolet. And
of course, the Heartbeat of America.
The Heartbeat of America. Yeah, I actually sang that jingle, The Heartbeat of America. That was before Like a Rock, Bob Seger. And I enjoyed that kind of work. And in doing the 30-second commercials, the advertising agency would call me and they said, "We need a 15-second voiceover for the donut." And I said, what do you mean donut? And they said, "Well, we have you at the opening of the commercial visually and at the end of the commercial visually. Now we need 15 seconds of your voiceover giving the price point of this particular deal." And so at that particular time, in the early 90s, which you guys probably don't know about, I had a Tascam quarter-inch tape machine and an AKG microphone. And that's what I would record my 15-second donut voiceovers on, and FedEx it to the advertising agency for Chevrolet, and then they would add that to the commercial. And And we've come a long way from the days of quarter-inch 2-track tape machines to the digital age. That was right at the beginning of the 90s, going from analog into the digital world. But so such began my career in voiceovers and television.
How did you hook up in the audiobook part of that, JD? When exactly did you move into doing the audiobooks and hook up with Sharon?
Well, I woke up one morning and I said to my wife, I said, you know, I have all this great audio equipment because I had done voiceovers for documentaries and the television commercials, and I said, you know, I think I would like to narrate books. I love to tell stories, and I said, I think that's something I would just like to do. And my wife is a professional makeup artist, and it so happens she went to work that day at North Star Studio in Nashville, and said to the person that she was doing makeup on that day, you know, my husband wants to be a narrator. And she says, well, you know, I happen to know an agent that's looking for a narrator right now. And so I contacted him that very day and was offered 4 books based on the demo that I sent him at that time. And so that's pretty much how that happened. And then I loved it because narrating is, and I don't even like to say narrating, I like to say storytelling, because narration to me sounds like I'm announcing something. I don't want to announce it. I want to tell the story, so I found an affection and a love for this this opportunity to be like an entire cast in a feature film, and bring a book to life with the storytelling and the character voices, and so that first happened about 5 years ago. And you ask about how Sharon and I connected. That was through ACX. I believe Sharon was looking for a particular type of narrator, and ACX contacts there were familiar with my type of voice, and they sort of put us together and said, hey, why don't you two, you know, check each other out and see if it works. Am I right, Sharon?
Well, all I have to say is to all the women who are listening to this, can you imagine when I heard his voice that I said, oh, let's see, I'm not quite sure about this. You know, no, it wasn't like that. I screamed up and down the hallway in the hotel I was staying at. I went, I found him. I mean, and I didn't even know him. I didn't even know if he'd take my contract with music. So anyway, it's that was back in November of 2013, and we've done 11 books since.
Sharon, when you were first negotiating the deal with him and setting everything up for him to storytell your books, how much feedback did you give him on, you know, this is how this character sounds, this is the kind of personality he has, or so many things in the text, the tone isn't conveyed, and readers pick that up because they're reading the entire book and they know what that character's personality is like. But someone coming into it fresh wouldn't know that off the bat. Yes. How much of that type of preparation work did you do with him?
That's a really good question. We spend a lot of time phone. You know, I've never met JD. First of all, I've never met him in person. We've done everything. Our communication has been all electronic, and so I would give him a background of who the characters were, and we would converse back and forth on our with the little voice texting. And sometimes he would. Oh, he did the best one he did for me. You have to do this for them. Was the Bill Clinton one. Because I had a creepy professor that I wanted to have him speak, and so he gave me Bill Clinton. And it was creepy, all right. No politics here, but anyway, it was wonderful. And that's I would say, no, he's a little too highbrow, or he's not, or he's Southern, or just and then sometimes I would just say to JD, you know what, just do what you think is comfortable. And he'd come up with accents and voices sometimes that I gave him full direction, even to make certain word substitutions if he felt it was warranted.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to ask, is because many times something can be written one way, but when it's spoken, it doesn't sound right. Did you run into that a lot, where you had to rewrite?
Well, the big thing that I think as an author needs to be aware of is those dialogue tags, because you don't need as many he said, she said, especially if you have two different voices for the characters. So we've eliminated some of those, not all of them, but some of them. And some of the internal thoughts we have to say he thought or she wondered, and we do that. But we don't, it's not consistent, because I think we have a creative, fluid document when we're done, and I think that's what I wanted. And it comes alive because it's not always the same way every time.
I have a question that actually pertains to that, Sharon. Now, I know with WhisperSync, if you want to hook up with the WhisperSync app, you have to have it very, very similar to the actual book. If you do too much of a revision, they will, not link the two books up. So
we don't do revisions. No, there's no paragraphs or sentences. It's a word here and there, and I think you're allowed.
And you haven't had a problem then with with syncing up with just the light bit you're doing?
No. And I do change the document, and then I can always, because it is on KDP, I can upload it and correct it.
Okay, so when you change it for the audiobook, then you also change the Kindle version of it?
I do.
Okay. That's I was curious about that.
I usually do that ahead of the audiobook being released, because they're crunching it, and then I upload the new version so that everybody's getting the version that will be on audio.
And how did he actually audition for you, or did somebody tell you about him and you contacted him? It sounds like ACX is actually the one that kind of matchmaked you two.
Well, I was scared to death to start this whole process, especially, I had friends that had been very successful, but I was scared. So my rep at ACX said, well, just go out and listen to several of the producers and find a voice that you like. And so I listened to about 20 or 30. I invited 10 to interview, and I posted my text, and 2 people declined, a woman and a man, but both of them were uncomfortable reading sex scenes, and I made sure that they knew that there was going to be sex scenes. And I don't know, JD he was just way above all the rest. It was real clear to me right away that he was the right choice. So he had competition, but once I had him do the first book, I was sold completely.
JD, yes. JD, do you handle all the editing for the audio files yourself?
I do, yes. I do all the engineering, all the editing, and I prefer it that way. I know there are professionals that just do editing and proofing. I like the control of that. I like to, because I can establish my own pacing. I'm one that I like to eliminate breaths. I find breaths very distracting in narration, and so I do my own editing, and I prefer it that way. As long as Sharon is happy with my editing work, then I prefer that control.
Do you mind me asking what software you use? Because some of the self-publishing authors here may be recording their own audiobooks.
Not at all. I use Adobe Audition, CS6, and that's worked very well for me. And I go back to the days of using Saw Pro, which may be a software you've never heard of, but Adobe Audition, and I've used Pro Tools. Adobe Audition works best for me.
They kind of. I was going to ask. There was a question from Xavier about your in our comments about your audio setup, but that pretty much, I think, answers it.
Yeah.
What kind of microphone do you use? Maybe if he's
Well,
interested.
and I think that's very important. And my microphone is my best friend in the world. Okay, and fortunately, when I was a recording artist on MCA, I had the opportunity to experiment with every microphone known to mankind, because your producer wants to find the microphone that has the best frequency range for your particular voice. And we discovered, for me, that's the Neumann. And so I've continued to use that Neumann. I use a 103, has a large diaphragm. It has a high frequency range, actually more frequency range than I need, because I have to roll off some of the bass in my editing, because that microphone captures so much of the bass and the highs. But I've always stuck with that mic since I was a recording artist on MCA, because it has the kind of clarity and frequency range that works best for my voice.
Have you ever encountered a situation where you were working with an author and your take on a character was very different from the way the author felt that the character should sound?
Oh yes, oh yes indeed, right. And I appreciate when the author gives me first interpretation. And I've been an actor for 25 years, and I've been in 25 films, and I've always asked the director, let me give you my first interpretation, and then if you hate it, and you want to tweak it, hey, no problem. We'll make it whatever you want to make it. But yes, I have really gotten some characters wrong, because you start out thinking that a particular character is maybe a nice guy who turns out to be evil and destructive in the end, or you think you're doing an intelligent blonde-haired female, and you find out that she's anything but that in later chapters in the book. So no, that has happened many times. I get the character wrong, but like the communication that Sharon and I have, we're in communicato every day, which is wonderful. I mean, we
mind read too. We mind read too.
Yes, and that's very important. And Sharon and I talk about the characters, and I get a character breakdown from her. And if suddenly a new character pops up in the book that we haven't talked about, I can contact her immediately, and she will give me adjectives and to describe, because she knows the character very well in her head. And another thing that I like very much is if she says, I want to hear Daniel Day-Lewis as one of his characters in a particular movie. If she will describe the movie and the character, then I know exactly what she's looking for that part, and that's tremendously helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer the question? I'm not sure. Yes, I get a lot of characters wrong from first interpretation, but we get that corrected, and I fall in line, and I can tweak the character.
He doesn't do many of them wrong. He's being way too modest, but occasionally there'll be some tone or something that I just won't care for. It wasn't what I intended, because something else is happening in another book that he may not be aware of. And so I will ask him to fix that and why, and give him the reason why. And he fixes these things seamlessly. I mean, I just don't understand how he does it, but you can't even tell.
Okay, I have a question for Sharon, actually. So what, I guess basically I'm kind of wondering how well you sell your audiobooks. Now, I know for me, my audiobooks actually don't sell very well at all in comparison to my other books. They hardly sell, so I'm wondering how well yours sell. I know that you put them all in audiobook now, so they must be doing fairly well for you.
Yeah, I'm about maybe 2 months behind my investment in the 11 books, so that tells you that I've done fairly well. Yeah,
that they paid it off then pretty much within a couple of months per book. That's very, Very well. So now, do your military Brotherhood books sell better than your Tuscany ones?
Yes,
Or
they
do
do.
they all sell about the same rate?
No, the military romance does sell better, but I have some huge fans for the Vampires of Tuscany series. We just came out with the first Guardian one, so that one hasn't been tested, although that book's been out. But the vampire book, there are audio listeners that just listen to vampire books, and but most of my audience is listens to the SEALs.
So do you have any special places that you advertise your audiobooks, for getting the traction?
Yeah,
You're learning as you would go along?
Yeah, there really aren't any great places to, you can't put all your eggs in one basket, so I just have to promote. It's just like with our books. I mean, where's the best place to promote your book? Everywhere.
Okay, thanks, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kevin had the next question.
Yeah, Kevin, do you want to go ahead and ask yours, and then we'll move on to some of the questions that have popped up on the website?
Sure. Well, first, Sharon, I want to say sorry about your house, but I'm glad you and your husband were okay. But I was going to ask, a big deal for a lot of the authors was the change in royalties with ACX. Did that affect you at all, or?
No, it hasn't. Mainly because I locked in several books, and JD and I had done so many books, I asked him if he would agree to contract out. So I have probably enough books all through next year to do. So that I'm under the guideline.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Would you recommend that, like, just say an author has 5 books, would you recommend trying to get, like, the narrator locked down the same way you did, like, right away, and kind of do them all at once, or?
Well, I think, I do think that it's a good idea to have the same narrator. I think it looks different. I don't want to say bad, but I always wonder why somebody uses a different narrator for each book. I always wonder why. And when you have somebody that you like and you work well together, I don't understand why you would make a change. I also think that fans listen to the same narrator. They follow the narrator from book to book sometimes. I think they get used to the voice and they like that. So I just don't think, if you're happy, stick with it. Unless you have a book that, I toyed with the idea of having a female narrator for the Angel books, and then after I'd worked with JD enough, I realized that, I really wanted him to do that one too. I even toyed with the idea of having a native Italian speaker do the vampire books, because there's so much of it is in Italy. But in the end, I just decided to stick with what was working, and I think that was the right thing.
I was going to say, Kevin, there's just a couple of questions we'll quickly head up on the website, if you don't mind. Tucker has a question for JD. He wants to know if you do other genres outside of romance and romantic suspense and military romance. Have you got a wide range of audiobooks?
I have. I've done quite a bit of science fiction, self-help. I've done military manuals. That's not military romance, military manuals that are very complex with acronyms and every other word. And I've done suspense, mystery. But upon meeting Sharon and entering the world of romance, I found a true. I feel I found a true home. Okay, I really, really love her books and the way she writes, and it's so that's my love genre, and that's where I want to stay, and that's where I want to be. But yeah, I have done the other types of genres. I just really, after working with Sharon and truthfully, I had never read a romance novel until Sharon. but I didn't. I had a lot to learn, and the way Sharon writes is it teaches us everything that I feel that life is worth living for. Love, romance, sex. I mean, that's what we're here for, man. Okay. And
when his wife emails me and thanks me for my books, I know I've done the right thing.
So, as a quick follow-up, that means you won't narrate my life for me, because that would be really good. Just follow me around and
just sizes, shape, eye color. I can do that.
And he wondered what it was doing. It was doing nothing because it was a wall. Something like that. Okay,
That's it.
A couple more questions.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
JD?
Yes.
Could you give us a first impression of how you would narrate Carl's character if you were going to narrate his life?
Well, I would be very serious, I would, I'm very sincere about what I'm. No, I think I'm doing Arabic there. I'm sorry. I love Carl. I love his style, his look. I love his growth. I've been working on the growth like that. Unfortunately, I can only get the pirate goatee, but
this is what they call a hipster beard.
Hey, Carl, let me tell you something. I love that look, man. I tell you, Monica tried to get me to grow a beard, but it was all white, and she said, "Hey, just forget it, But no, it's
very good. Now I'm completely derailed because I just want to do impressions now.
All right, I love the way you speak. It's very, it's relaxing to the ears. Yes.
Kevin probably has a real question.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. Sharon, you said that for a while before you found JD that you were considering doing a native Italian speaker.
Yes.
Have you considered taking like a German or Spanish translation of one of your books and then getting them audiobooked in Spanish or German?
Yes.
And is there a market for that?
There is. But it's very expensive to have done. And that's, right now, it's cost prohibitive for me. But yes, I'd like to do that. The other thing about it is, though, that a lot of people listen to English narrations, some of them to learn better English. So, most of the rest of the world does speak English, or it's a very common language. The need for doing the narrations, unlike, say, the need for translating books in print, I think it's lessened. So, I probably will do that. I just can't afford it at this time. It's like double or triple.
Hola, amigo.
Yeah.
All right, Sharon, there's a couple of more questions from Zoe York on the website for you.
Hey, Zoe. Hi, Zoe.
Her first one is, was there a tipping point in audiobooks similar to ebooks where a number of books available makes a difference in the general income for your books? Should an author commit to doing, say, 5 in a series? That's the first one.
Mm-hmm. I would say yes, she should, and not wait and just put one up and do the trial balloon. Just like Trish knows this very well, you don't just put one book up, you want to have more than one. Now, Trish got really lucky with her first one. Not lucky, it's skill. I know, Trish. But most people today are doing a series when they're releasing their books. That's the smart way to do it. And so it's the same with audio. You want to have, because if they love the first one, they want to buy 2 or 3 more. So I would say go for it, do all 5, and don't hold back.
Okay, so leaning into that question, let's talk a little bit about pricing then. You gave us kind of some just general pricing ideas. Could you kind of list those for the viewers as well? How much it would, broad terms, how much it would cost to do a book?
Sure. The standard, sort of the standard range for paying the the talent, which is what JD is $200 to $400 an hour. That's the standard. Things are higher sometimes, and I've heard of some doing it for lower. And so you figure that's per finished hour. So if you have a 9 or a 10-hour book, audiobook, which would be like say a 90,000 or 100,000 word book, then you can multiply that by $200 to $400, and that gives you the idea of how much that's going to cost you to produce. Now, if you there are stipends and things that can be arranged, but that's just your general rule of thumb. If the narrator, in addition to this, spends probably 3 or 4 times the finished hour actually preparing, redoing, uploading, making sure the quality is there, and he reads and studies, has to do sometimes research for me, for accents and words and things of that nature. So they're spending 3 or 4 hours for every finished hour. So they're not really getting $200 to $400 an hour. But it would be safe to assume that most authors will spend for a normal book, 80,000 word up, $3,000 to $4,000 to $4,500 or so. And if it's a book that's sold well, I think you could plan on it earning back. 6 months or a year would be good. That's a good return on your investment, and I've done much better than that.
Well, that's very, very good to hear. We have another follow-up question from Zoe York. She wrote in, can you speak to the difference between military romance and romantic suspense, and where you see the growth of the military romance subgenre?
Oh, okay, sure. I think that we are looking as a nation for heroes. Yes, there's sports heroes. Yes, there's rock stars and things, people like that. But I think we are looking for heroes. And, some readers like to read about billionaires. Some readers like to read about wealthy older men and younger women. Some people like to read first-time love affairs and first-time jobs and leaving the house. In military romance, you get all those things. I mean, you can have, it sort of cuts across all those levels. And what we're looking for is a hero that basically doesn't do what he does for money, will always protect the innocent, and is highly trained and usually a perfect physical specimen. So for me, as a writer, I like that guy. Or in the vampires, they have all these special powers, they can do all these wonderful things. I want an alpha male that is an alpha male, because most women are listening to these books and they're fantasizing about somebody who's different than their husband, let's face it. So I want somebody who, right? I mean, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Those are the facts of life. So
there you go.
And it's healthy, okay? So I think that the military hero who doesn't do it for fame, fortune, or money, who does it because it's the right thing to do, that is the true definition of a hero. And whether it's high action, which some romantic suspense is, or big bedroom scenes and other action, other places, it's all romantic suspense. Did I answer your question?
You did. You absolutely did.
So do you see much of a transfer in sales between your military romantic suspense and your vampires and your angel series, or are there specific audiences for each of these kind of subgenres?
I think my paranormal fans are into anything, okay? I don't want to know what else they read, but they read a lot of stuff that goes way beyond what I write. And they'll go with my SEALs. The SEAL readers don't cross over as much. That's what I found. So I'm happy with both the paranormal and the military romance. I'm also going to do some big books. in a series I have planned. And I'd like to eventually write, big epic books someday. So, but the crossover isn't equal. The military romance or romantic suspense doesn't go necessarily to the paranormal, but the other way will apply.
That's very, very interesting. One thing you mentioned earlier is that you promote your audiobooks. Is there any kind of comparable to like BookBub or eReader News Today for audiobooks? Or do you just use Facebook or in social media, or what do you use to promote the audiobooks?
There isn't right now that I'm aware of, and if somebody has one, please contact me. I'm interested.
I think Kevin and I are planning on starting one after this. I think
Please.
we've got them.
If anyone wants to sign up for our audiobook mailing list, put your email in the comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
We promise not to spam.
There aren't even that many audiobook review sites yet. There's thousands of book review sites, So I think this is just such a new genre that it will catch on. But somebody could really, if somebody wanted to start a business reviewing audiobooks, I think they would have every author I know of. We get our free codes. We would love to have people review all of our books. We would give away books just for review. And as far as promoting, well, JD is my secret weapon, and he has a Facebook page which you can see. He posts. He makes my book trailers. So my book trailers are about my characters and the plot. I write the script, and he narrates those and he creates those for me. He's all part of the marketing. That's another reason why I use him. So I hope I'm not saying things I shouldn't say, JD, but he is my secret weapon, really. He's thinking about that.
Oh no! I'm waiting for Trish or Carl or John to jump in there. No. Yeah, and I love being a part of that whole process, and I'm thankful that I'm allowed to do Sharon's book trailers, because after I do her book is completely in my head and in my heart, and there's nothing I would rather do than be able to express it visually and audibly in a trailer form for her. And so I enjoy that process very much, and I'm glad that we're able to work together on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
Now we all jump in. JD, let me ask you, how picky are you about the jobs that you choose? Do you read the book beforehand, or just to get a thorough synopsis? How much information do you need to know about the book before you accept the job?
That's a great question, John. I would love to have the luxury of time to completely read an entire book, but there's just not that luxury of time. So a synopsis is very important to me, and most authors do have a synopsis or a brief description of what the book is about. And but no, the genre is most important to me, and feeling comfortable with the author's intent and what the book is describing is very important to me. So I think you asked me, am I particular? Yes, I would say I'm pretty particular about that. I may not have started out that way, but I have become that way because I feel that it's important. I want people to appreciate my work, and I can't do my best work unless it's something that I believe in, that I have my heart invested in, and this is the thing that I enjoy so much about working with Sharon, is I know her by heart. Like she told you earlier, we've never met in person, but I know her by heart through her writing and her books, and I truly love the stories that she tells, and that's become very important to me. So I would say, yeah, I'm pretty particular now about what I would do.
Okay, so with that in mind, are there any topics or genres off the top of your head that you're just tell someone up front, no, I'm not interested in that?
Yes, politics. No, I would not. No politics, please. Okay. And even though I'm a fan of science fiction, I don't really care to do science fiction books. But in answer to your question, politically, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Okay, I have a question for JD on the trailers. Do you actually do voiceover for trailers, ones that you've not actually done the audiobooks on, or is that something that you just kind of do for your audiobook authors?
I have actually been hired to do trailers for films. Maybe not a film that you would know that's been on the big screen, okay? But there are a lot of independent films out there and a lot of indie filmmakers that know me and know my voice, and I do get hired for that quite often. But again, it may not be a film that you would know or recognize.
Okay, but not particularly for book trailers then, for the type of trailer that Sharon's doing for her SEAL books?
No, I really didn't know about book trailers before Sharon, okay, which I think is an excellent idea. I think every book should have a trailer, but I really wasn't aware that had existed. I had done audio book trailers, but I didn't realize that there were actual videos, where you bring in pictures of the characters, some B-roll footage of what's going on in the book. I think that's a great way to introduce and sell an audiobook. But I really wasn't aware of that before Sharon. But I think it's a wonderful idea, and I love it.
I forced it on him. I did.
Now I have a follow-up on the book trailer, Sharon. Have you gotten a lot of readers tell you that they discovered your work
Yes.
through the YouTube trailers?
Yes. There are a lot of people that don't think of themselves as audiobook listeners. Okay, they think of themselves as readers, and it's so we tempt them with the trailer because it has his voice. It has JD's voice, and JD's voice sells that book. I mean, it has to have a decent story too, and visually nice things. But if they like his voice, they're going to buy, that audiobook. So,
worked for me.
yes.
I listened to the trailer, and let's just say I immediately had to buy that book. It was pretty steamy.
Yeah.
I bet JD has a good gay crossover audience.
I hope so.
What we tell people, and I'm sure Trish has said this to people too, with guys that might want to buy one of our books, we say, well, the best thing you could do is buy one and read it to your wife. And women love to have men read them stories. And yes, and so having JD's voice before you go to bed at night with the headphones, I mean, come on. There's a lot of women out there that could do far worse, right?
Very true. I think that Zoe had a question. Who was going to ask that? Or maybe it was Xavier had a follow-up question from the site.
Yes, I have
Sorry, I believe it was Kristen Harbor's question, right?
Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
She had JD and Sharon seem like they do a lot of promotion together. Is that something they worked out beforehand? Was that part of the deal? Was that something JD was comfortable initially that he worked into?
Oh, I shamed him into it, Kristen. I just said, if you want the rest of these books, you will do. No, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. That's what I did to my husband. No, I'm just kidding. It just sort of evolved, Kristen. And I have a son who's very creative, and he was going to help me with a few things, and he had some other things come up, so I asked JD if he'd help out, and one thing led to another, and I didn't even know he could do this. So we sort of found it just by playing around with things. We have other things we want to do too. So it just sort of evolved because I think we have a good communication and we trust each other, and we enjoy the process, the collaboration. It's like, you know, two dancers out on the stage. You know, we're not married to each other. We don't even know each other, but we make beautiful music, and I love the way his voice brings my books to life to women mostly, and that's just something that evolved. You know?
JD, one of the listeners from our site, Xavier Granville, he wanted to know if you are going into an actual studio or what type of studio setup you have for recording.
A good question. I have a home studio, and it's very important to choose a very small room with low ceilings. Okay, some people actually record in their closet. That's a little too confining for me. But I have a small bedroom that I converted into a soundproof recording studio. And again, it's important to have a four-cornered room, low ceilings, soundproofing, and blackout curtains. I have soundproofing over the window, and that was very necessary because I live in Nashville, just 12 miles from downtown Nashville, so there's a lot of air traffic coming over. You know, my neighbor will get out his weed eater or a lawnmower, and sometimes that's an interference, and I have to pause because there's no such thing as 100% soundproofing. Okay, so there are sounds that are going to get in the way, and you must pause for and wait. Or when you go back to edit, you will hear that, and you'll have to re-record that part. But yes, I created my home studio. I use an iMac, and of course, like I said earlier, the Neumann microphone, Adobe Audition CS6 editing software, and I have a mic chain command. I use a DBX Gator compressor. And I have quite a bit of equipment that I have, you know, found the need to that what better enhances what I do. You know, if I find a need for that, I'll buy it and add it to my equipment list. But yeah, I love my home studio. I love not having to get and it's much more economical too, because now if you go into a studio, then you're going to have an engineer, sometimes a director. It'd be a nice luxury to go into a big studio where you're just sitting there and all you're doing is narrating with an engineer and a director. But you must be more cost effective than that. I think it's important to be able to do your own editing, directing, and engineering as well. So yeah, that's what I do.
Okay. Also, just let you and Sharon know, I linked to your SEAL trailers that you'd posted on your YouTube channel on our website, so people can hear and see what you're talking about.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sharon, there's another question on the site for you. This time from Cora Seaton, and she says, "Hi Sharon,
Hi.
Have Audible and Amazon done a lot of promotion for your books at all? What can you talk about? Any promotion that they've done directly for you?"
Okay. I'm not aware of all the promotion that they do. They do things in certain ways that I don't know, like linking my sales. Like every time, for instance, every time I go on the Audible site, Kristen's books are there. Kristen Harbert's books are there. And she said, and I made a comment to her the other day, I said, "Your books are big in the middle of this page whenever I go up." She goes, "That's funny. Your books are always in the middle of the page when I go in there and check." So they pair up like readers. So that kind of promotion actually, I think, is the most effective promotion that anybody can do. And they do that. They do that very well. I think the other thing that they do is adjust the price, and I don't have any say as to when they do it. They do it, you know, however it makes sense to them. I'm not complaining because they make an adjustment in the price. I discover it, I promote it, and all of a sudden we get 100 sales in a day, or more than 100 sales. So I like those little surprises. So it's not organized, so I would like to see it a little more organized so I could set the tweets and have the street team and all the people promote it. But it works the way it is, and I don't know how they decide to do it, but so far I'm happy with it.
Okay, we had another question from the site from Carrie Ann Porter. I think this actually probably pertains more to JD. She was wondering what kind of finished hours you're looking for. You can kind of expect. How long does it take you to actually produce a video book? Like 3 hours per finished hour, or how long does it actually take you to actually do, say, a 100,000 word book?
Hi, Carrie. Good question. And again, that depends on the complexity of the book and how many character voices you're doing. But on an average, I would say 3 hours to 1 for me. Now, ACX might even suggest that it's as much as 6 hours of work for one finished hour. But I've done this for 5 years now. I've recorded over 60 books, and I've kind of got it down to a nice science. But if you don't have to do an exorbitant amount of research for a particular character voice, I would say the average time is 3 hours of work to 1 hour of finished product.
Okay,
can I mention something in there?
Sure.
Because something he said really I think would be helpful for writers who have not done an audiobook. You really want to review those chapters before they get all the way through the book. What happens if they record 30 or 40 chapters and they mispronounce the name all the way through the book? Then you're asking that poor narrator to go through and erase, and do hundreds and hundreds of hours. So I try to do them in blocks of time, 3 to 4 chapters. I try not to let it go more than a day or two, and there's been some exceptions with that. And that's what a author can do to help cut down on the producer's time. And then, of course, then the producer is more available to do other things, and I think it's a better quality job. So it's sort of a yin and yang type of thing.
Oh, that's a great point, Sharon. So you're basically saying they need to kind of monitor along with the narrator to kind of speed the process along.
Yeah, and not monitor. I mean, because that, I have a tremendous respect for how JD does things, and I trust him. I mean, he makes choices on things, and I listen to him. I go, that's a better word. That's a better word than I came up with. Or the accent is better than what I pictured in my own mind. So, but it's I become a part of that process instead of waiting to listen to the whole thing at the end. I think that's a huge mistake.
Okay, that's good to know. I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
The other question that kind of tied in with this probably actually goes to both of you guys. Is Carrie was saying that she knows quite a few authors now that are starting to move into audio, and she's wondering if it's harder now to kind of get into audio than it was when you started out, what kind of pitfalls you need to be looking for.
Well, I don't think it might affect JD, but I don't think it will affect me at all. I think people, maybe for a brand new author to get discovered, it's just like a brand new author getting discovered with their books. Audiobooks are the same thing. Is there a glut on the market of audiobooks? I don't think so. I think there's a huge demand.
Do you think it takes longer to produce a book with the flood of books going through audio now than it used to take?
I don't think so. Do you, JD? Do you think it's taking longer?
Well, no, but I think they've said that it may take longer. But
Mm-hmm.
after we deliver a book, we're getting it to retail in what, 2 weeks,
2
3
to
weeks?
3 weeks, yeah.
Right, and that's pretty much been the standard, and ACX does a fabulous job of that. They really do.
We had one in December that went to market in like 10 days. We were shocked, but that's not the norm. And they're also upgrading. They're trying to, and I think most of the audio producers are doing the same thing. They want to get away from the garage band type of mix. They want to have high quality audiobooks. So I think that will weed out some of the people who are just jumping in just to throw something together. They aren't going to pass the muster.
Okay, JD, are you still open to new clients? I think part of what's worrying people is that the tried and true narrators, the ones that really know what they're doing and do a good job, that they're pretty full up now with clients. So it's harder maybe for new and upcoming authors to get good narrators. Do you have any idea if that's true?
I would say that's probably true. Yes, and you know, I'm very happy working with Sharon right now, and Sharon is a very prolific writer and does a genre that I enjoy and love. So I'm very blessed right now to be working with her, and it would be unfair for me to take on another author at this time. Unfair to the author, unfair to myself, unfair to Sharon, because we have a lot of work to accomplish right now. And I don't like to double up on books. If I'm into a genre and I've got a series of books to do, I want to keep my head in that particular area. You know, so that's where I'm at right now. It's just like I can't imagine as an actor doing 2 movies at the same time would be hellacious, in my opinion. You know, you've got your head in one character, one place. You want to stick with that. So the answer to the question is, yeah, I think it's probably you've got to have patience if you're an author looking for a particular narrator that you want. Just be patient and wait for that, or continue looking until you find a voice that you like.
Can I jump in on that too, JD?
You bet.
Because Susie, we heard Susie Bright, who came with Jason with ACX and spoke to our San Francisco RWA chapter. And she said that it's great to discover new narrators and new storytellers. She said, how wonderful would it be as a new author to discover somebody that's going to go on and just be fabulous later on. She said she hears people every day. She interviews and listens, and she hears people every day that get her so excited. How great would it be to get in on the ground floor, you as a new author, with a new narrator that's both of you are going to go on and do great things. So I don't think it has to limit the author. I think you may have to call through more things, but it's there. I think it's there for everybody.
Okay, that was my last question of Carrie's.
Yeah, I'm just double checking the website. There is one more from Kristen. She just had a question about audio samples. Sharon, do you do the book opening, or do you pick an excerpt from the book for your samples?
When I was initially interviewing, I tried to get a little bit of an action scene, some sex, and a descriptive scene. And that's when you have all three. I think then you give the narrator something to work with. If you're not picking up or you're not sure, then I would ask them to narrate another one. And I did ask somebody to read a sex scene, a longer sex scene, and I asked one Italian narrator to read my vampire, just give a little interview. And they're used to getting multiple requests, so you have to go after them. They aren't going to come to you. And I think also, if it's real important, and it is important to me, how the male narrator does women's voices, because you don't want them sounding like Mickey Mouse, So I put a woman's voice in the sample so that I could see how the men handled it. I knew the women who were trying out would handle it, but I wanted to see how the man handled it. Not all male narrators can do that.
Very interesting. Do any of you guys have any more questions for JD or Sharon? I asked on the website. It looks like we're full of questions, and we are coming up on our usual regular stop time, but there is some admin stuff. So do we have any final questions, John or anyone else?
Yes,
I do, actually, and I think Kevin has one as well. Go ahead, you first, John. I'll go after you.
You mentioned about discovering new narrators.
Yes.
Many of our authors will be working with a narrator for the first time.
Yes.
And it's quite likely that they'll be hiring a narrator who's accepting their first job.
Yes.
Other than the voice and the quality of the voice and willingness to read sex scenes or whatever's endemic to that story,
Right.
what are the qualities that they should look for that someone who's done this before would know off the top of their head that you may not see going into it?
Oh, I would say think of your audience and think of your readers or your listeners first, and hire the voice that you think your target audience will want to hear. So if most of your women are readers or listeners are going to be over 40, they may not want a 20-year-old narrating a book, man or woman. So just, and maybe they would, in YA or young adult, you have to, again, you're not having 60-year-old readers read that genre. So you would pick your narrator based on your audience. When I heard JD's voice and I put those headphones on and listened to it, I looked around to make sure my husband wasn't in the room. I was like, I'm not sure if I should do this. But then I knew that if I had that reaction to the narration, that my readers would have the same reaction, and that's exactly what I wanted to have. So I made that choice and got over it.
JD, as a narrator, is there anything that you can tell authors that they should be looking for?
Well, I was really thankful that Sharon chose me, because when she heard this voice, I was really surprised that she thought I was the right voice for romance. But so, I'm sorry. What was the question? I had a brain moment, or an unbrain moment. What was the question? I'm sorry.
What are the qualities that an author should be looking for when they're hiring a narrator?
The qualities, okay. Consistency. All right. Firstly, it's important to find the voice that really expresses your content in either of as Sharon was saying, a very mature or immature or whatever, the right storytelling voice, and then to find a narrator that is willing to work with you, I think, on a daily basis. There was a time period where I was doing books through an agent that I had no communication with the author. And I would come to places in the book where I just did not know what the author intended, and I had to guess. And you don't want to do that. So you want to work with a narrator that says, yes, I can talk to you at any point during the day. I can text, I can email. Sharon and I do voice messages, which I love, on our iPhones. So long voice messages. Because I don't want to impose on her at any particular time, but I want to leave a voice message, and this is what I want to know from you, Sharon. And when she gets time, she will answer me back that way. So I think that's what's important is that get a narrator that realizes the collaboration is so important to make this work. Okay, that I'm not just going to give you a book, hand it to you, and then you just go do your own thing, because. Maybe if you're working with Daniel Day-Lewis, maybe that would work, okay, but typically you need to be in very close communication, the author and the narrator. So that's very important. And then again, the qualities you say, the consistency, that they work with excellent equipment. I'm not talking about an AKG microphone and a 2-track tape recorder with no soundproofing. I mean, you want great quality, and you want a narrator who, again, I said, is consistent with the voice, because, and we could talk for hours about that, because as a voice talent, once you eat food, your voice pitch can change. If you exercise, your voice pitch can change. And so there's certain times of the day that it's better to record to keep that voice consistent. And all those are just important elements of being a good narrator, storyteller, and those are qualities that are necessary. And but you really need to establish a good relationship, know who you're dealing with, and that they're serious about what they're doing, and that they have talent. They don't just have a recording machine and a microphone, and they can read, but they actually have talent. And if they have experience in acting, that's even better, because we're not just reading. We're working to bring the book to life and make it interesting and engaging and pleasurable for the listener.
Awesome.
That was a great explanation. Before I just get into the wrap-up admin stuff as usual, I have one final question for JD. Do you want to hit us with your favorite impression and/or accent, just to bring us out?
Well,
you're a voice actor.
Oh, Sharon, I
this whole time wanting to do accents and voice impressions with you.
You could do Marcus. You could do Maxim. Oh, you do Maxim so well.
Hey, JD, I'll even give you the script.
Oh, good.
Carl has a tradition on this show where he ends the program by saying, "Say hi to your mum for me."
Say hi to your mom. Say hi to your mom for me. Say hi to your mom for hello, mom. Or we could do Clinton. Hey, mom, how you doing there? What do you want?
Do Mayfield. Do Sergeant Mayfield. Sergeant Mayfield. He's good.
Sergeant
Mayfield.
Mayfield. Okay. Is he?
Oh, son, I don't do what you do. But
let me tell you something. Okay. You got a problem. You see me. Okay. I'll take care of it. Now, look. I'm gonna do this thing for you, all right? Hey, mom, I love you, mom, but you know what I do. You know what your kid is about, okay? You need this thing taken care of. Just tell me. You got a big trunk in your car? I take care of it, all right? No problem.
$500.
$250 for you. Forget about it. I love you.
We have fun.
All right. Thanks again for Sharon and JD for both being on. Just before we go, the usual little admin stuff. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and or leaving us a review over on iTunes. You'll notice the website has changed a little bit, and I've made it easier for you to do that, and also to subscribe to the blog to make sure you never miss one of my brilliant blog pieces or one of Kevin's amazing interviews. He has a new one up with Christopher Nuttall that I suggest that you go and check out. And finally, I've been getting a lot of emails from people recently, always asking me who our guests are going to be in the coming weeks. And whilst I do love replying to all of our emails, I thought it was easier just to make a page. So I have done that, and if you look at the top of the website now, there is an upcoming shows page, which I'm going to highlight here for you, and you can see everything about the person that's coming up and the date that they're going to be on. We're booked quite far out, as you can see. We have Annie Jacoby next week, and the week after is Cassia Leo, and we're booked right through to 2nd of October now, so no more emails, just go in and read about them and prepare yourself with lots of questions for the upcoming shows. Do you guys have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
It was great having you on.
I will say, however, that we are trying to get Riddell booked, Riddle. AJ Riddle. So many requests has come in for that, and he has agreed to come on the show. but he's also a pretty darn busy person right now, and he's on a cruise right now, so I don't know exactly when we're going to be able to get him in. But he is an upcoming show, probably sometime this fall.
Yeah, we have a lot of people were asking about Rachel Aaron, the lady who wrote the book 2K to 10K. She's coming on the 18th of September. So all that information's in there. You can read more about Sharon. You can read more about JD. And please do consider joining up to the site so you don't miss anything, because there's lots more content coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Sharon and JD, for being on. And as always, say hi to your mums for me.